Welcome, book lovers. We are back. Phil Svitek and myself, Marisa Serafini, this month for the month of January 2026. We are reading The Phantom Tollbooth by Norton Juster. It's a great, fun children's book to kick us off this brand new year. We'll get all into it, spoiler heavy. If you haven't read the book, pause us, go read the book, come back to us, and join along with us. Phil, what were your first quick thoughts about this book?
Hello, everyone. So obviously, this is a much lighter book than we usually read, but it doesn't make it any worse. In fact, I hadn't probably read this in God knows how long, and it is inventive. It is as good with its use of language as any quote-unquote adult book. And I think the themes and its creativity is just amazing, right? So I almost think it's harder to write a kid's book in many ways because you are so confined by the word count, the page count, and having to, in a way, simplify things. And this, it both simplified things, but it didn't talk down to kids. I don't feel like I think it's a very brilliant book. I love the themes of the book. I think there's a lot of themes. And yeah, it's just so wildly inventive. And in a way, I could picture it because quite literally there were pictures. And it reminded me of The Page Master, the movie with Macaulay Culkin, for those of you who may remember, of just this fun. You're sucked in to the joy of reading. And you're on this adventure, and that's ultimately the message of the book, I feel. So I had a blast with it.
Absolutely. Myself as well. I have never read this book. I've heard of it. It just never came across for me as a child. And somehow as I got, admittedly, I was working on another show and someone was reading this book at the same time. They were mentioning and talking about it. I was like, oh, this book sounds fascinating. And then I was like, let's read it. And then sure enough, I was thoroughly impressed and blown away by this book at the end of it. It's like, this is a fun book. I'm glad I read it. And I'm glad I'm reading it now as an adult than rather when I would be a child reading it. Because I think it is a more heady book than I was realized it was going to be. And I'm glad being an adult and understanding it and comprehending it better from looking at through the adult eyes. I think I appreciate it more now than I probably would have as a child if I actually read it.
I think for sure, because it has that inventiveness that reminds you of what it is like to be a kid. And part of, unfortunately, growing up is we get into these systems and these banal forms of life, if you will. And this just reminds you of just that life can be different. And I know it's all like quote unquote made up, but just the idea that like, okay, growing up, right, is this word and we start small with on the ground, and then we grow into space, right? Whereas this book takes it like, no, you start high in the air and you grow down to the ground. And so just, I think anytime you can push against your conditioning, which I know like we're kind of now, at least me talking in therapeutic terms, but I just think like part of the challenge of adultness is to get beyond your conditioned default thinking. And even though this is silly, it allows you to do that and to rethink a world in a new way, right? And I think that to me is the real magic. And so I almost think this should be required reading for adults more so than kids.
That's what I was saying when I was talking about this book to other people. I was like, they should require children to read this. They should require teenagers to read this. I feel like 5-year-olds, this would totally go over the heads of 5-year-olds, but like the adult kids more so, anywhere from like maybe 10 to 15. I mean, you do have to have an established language. It's like you do have to understand idioms and metaphors and puns and stuff like that. So there is a level of language you have to understand for the jokes to hit. for the wisdom and the lessons to be taken, you got to be at a certain level to understand it. Yeah, I definitely agree. This should be like required reading in probably like grade school, high school, and like it was really fun and whimsical, and honestly, I wasn't expecting it. And I love children's adventure stories, and this was just yet another one. I was like, all right, I'm actually really glad I picked this book. So I didn't know much about this book going into it. Author Norton Juster, he was born in 1929 in Brooklyn, in New York. He was the son of an architect, and he himself became an architect. He went to the University of Pennsylvania, and then he got his degree, completed it at University of Liverpool. He worked in the U.S. Navy, and then after that, in New York, he was an architect, and he started his own firm. And he just growing up, he always had a love for wordplay, puns, and just the absurdity, which we definitely see that trickled into this book. And for his first, and this was actually his first book, the Phantom Tollbooth. It was published in 1961 while he was living in Brooklyn, and his neighbor, Jules Feiffer, was the illustrator. He's the one who did all the drawings. And rest in peace, Jules Feiffer. He had just passed away in 2025. So recently for us, not to put a timestamp on this show, but yeah. So really, really fun. Like you said, there's a bunch of pictures. I could visually characterize these characters, which was fun for me. Also as a visual learner, I was like, oh, all right. When you add the personification of words and metaphors into actual human beings, like I think I learned better that way, and I wasn't expecting that, which was that was a nice surprise for me.
Yeah,
What
I
about you?
think it. I think it does a little bit of the heavy lifting for sure, right? Because you're reading something, and rather than have to overly describe it with words, you can just put a picture, right?
Mhm.
And certainly, well, I'm sure we'll talk about your favorite chapter in Digitalopolis.
Oh my god! I knew you were gonna bring that up. I was like, we'll get there.
But but in general, right? Like it has that economy where the two don't like. It's not like the words were written and then it's like, oh, we'll illustrate it. I think the two work in tandem to create that synthesis to tell its full story. And I love that about it. And even like the illustration at the beginning of everywhere they go, I really love that. And just that kind of sets you up, and so you kind of are able to follow the adventure. And certainly like it's one of those things. I don't know about for you, but like they call it the Phantom Tollbooth, but the iconic image is the kid with the clock dog, or watchdog as he is
Milo and
officially
Tock.
known.
Yeah.
Yeah, so you start to wonder of like, who is the Phantom Tollbooth, and then
Yeah.
uh, and all this. But obviously, the title of the book makes sense once you get into it, and yeah, there's just all these wacky characters. And to your point, like if it is a kid's book, they need a little bit of help, just like us. But here I'll point to the page in Digitalopolis where they're talking about numbers, and again, so it's this specificity of language where it's like can like Milo asks, can you show me the biggest number there is? And they show him a three, but you're like, wait, a three? Well, because they mine for numbers, and the number itself that they mined is literally big. And so you see like just the absurdity, and how like, yeah, language is beautiful
Literal.
because yeah, we can use language as a shortcut, but that presumes we both know the inherent thing that we're talking about versus not talking about. You know what I mean? And I think that's where different dialects and accents and certainly different languages, I think there is a thing, like it's like the more languages you know, the more you travel, sort of a thing. So anyway, kick it back to you.
Absolutely. Yeah. So, reading this, fortunately, it is fairly linear, which I enjoyed. It's easy to follow along. And I feel like the best way to probably break this book down for us is just to go linearly through all the locations and encounters, because it is an adventures book, the traveling, yada da da da. But they meet so many characters along the way, and I feel like the only way to like keep them all straight, and how they apply to the story, is actually do it chronologically, like the book. So I'd like for that be our approach for this particular episode. Normally we don't do
Sure.
that, but I think it's very applicable to this book. But basically, the overall plot is very simple. Really, it's like Milo. He's a young kid. Everything's a bore in his life, and he just like doesn't have any fascinations to do anything or want to do anything. This Phantom Tollbooth appears up in his bedroom. He assembles it and gets in it, and he's along for this ride, and basically that sets us off. And once he's there, we're gonna go like the first encounters, and then like the first locations and all the people that they encounter, and then they'll move to the next location, so on and so forth. So the first encounter, basically, he meets the weatherman. Not the weather as in atmospheric type of weather, but weather for all. It's important to know whether there will be weather, that what the weather will be. So the literal term of weather, which or where. Um, and what were your thoughts of weather? And like that's just like how we started off in such an ambiguous character.
Yeah, I thought like it's a wildly philosophical book, right? And so just that line alone, it's more important to know whether there will be weather than what the weather will be. And it's
Mm-hmm.
again, we just presume that like, well, of course there's going to be weather outside because we live, and that's what it is. And so Milo is a great surrogate to us as an audience, right? And the fact that he's like a bore and has to like he's just going left and right and being like, what the hell is happening, right? And we're kind of like in that same way. And the bore part I think works specifically because you can graft your own personality onto Milo. I feel like if you gave him like he's angry, he's sad, he's this or whatever, it might be attributing too much. I think having him be a little bit hollow creates that almost like video game like effect for the reader, if you will.
Mm. Yeah, I think him not having like, I wouldn't say purpose, but just him being so disengaged also helped, because that it made his character more amenable to all the situations that he encountered and all the people that he encountered. He was just open to whatever, and that allowed the reader to just go along also with all the encounters, that because he didn't know what to expect, we didn't know what to expect, and literally that was like the first place. It's like the was expectations is the place you must always go to before you get to where you're going, and he didn't even know where he was going, so he had no expectations. um, and that's how we start the book. That's heady. We're like, okay, this book is literally going to go everywhere. And then we end up in the Doldrums, which is a place where nothing ever happens and nothing ever changes, which also reflects still the mentality of what Milo is doing. He's not expecting anything, he's not doing anything, and they have a bunch of laws, and it's unethical to think. Therefore, thinking is also illegal. Therefore, reason and just doing any actions is illegal. So people aren't getting anything done. So they're stuck in their old ways. Hence the doldrums.
Yeah, and
And oh,
this is where we also get our watchdog, right? Because he's watching over them, um, and things of that nature. But yeah, to me, it's funny. They're like these tiny little creatures that just can't complete a sentence. They just keep falling asleep because of how boring things are,
mm-hmm.
you know.
Yeah,
And
the lethargians.
indeed,
Yeah,
so yeah,
lethargians, also known like lethargy. Again, I think you have to have like a certain level of intelligence to understand vocabulary and stuff. It's like I don't think a 5-year-old kid's gonna know what lethargy is, let alone lethargians. But sorry, continue.
no, and like it's interesting that that's kind of like one of the first things that we get, because Milo has nothing but time on his hands because he's bored all the time, right? And part of it is like in the greater world, how many people like seemingly are doing interesting things but are bored out of their mind, right? And so it's such an easy way to like just be bored, you know? And
Right.
like think about what a boring person is. Like they could be talk. I could talk about running away from a volcano, but if I talk like this, where the lava was flowing and we had like that's boring. Whereas I could tell a story about an ant and make it very exciting. You know what I mean? So it all depends. And
Absolutely.
yeah, yeah. Anyway, it's framing.
Yes. So here we meet one of the other main characters, this watchdog named Tock. Even though he actually makes the ticking noise instead of the talking noise of a tick tock clock. He makes Tock, so they call him. He makes tick, but they call him Tock. See, it's also very confusing because his brother, they named him Tick, or they named, oh gosh, you see, even I'm confused. They named him
They named him
for
Tick, but he
the
talks.
sound. They exactly, and Talk ticks, but his name is Talk. So even things aren't what they seem, and that's where like so we already know as a reader it's like, oh, this is going to be slightly confusing, but also be able to understand different perspectives too, like both sides, the certain dichotomy in that way. um, so they're on their way to the Dictionopolis, the Happy Kingdom, where like the words and language is basically where all the words in the world they come from. They're grown right there in Dictionopolis. I would love this place. Quite honestly, I think you would know that. And here, this is one of the main locations of the place. First of all, sorry, this is my ADD now coming in play. It's like at the beginning of this book, fortunately for the pictures, there is a visual map of you can kind of see where Dictionopolis would lie. It's a big part of the kingdom, one half of the kingdom, basically. And here they go into this word market where it's like basically a big town square. There's a bunch of words, and you can buy them as if they're like products. And then they also meet the king advisors, the cabinets, which are five different characters, basically all the same, but they have the similes. Basically, they're words that mean the same, but in different ways. But they all have different values, but they all mean the same. And do-it-yourself wagon, where you can literally just buy letters, put your own words together. People find that cheaper, but because that takes up more time, a lot of people don't do that. And we also meet the spelling bee. So he teaches Milo and Talk the importance of spelling. And we also meet another big character that goes along with the ride for us for the rest of the book, Humbug. What were your thoughts of Humbug and how he was introduced, and just his character and what he brought to the story?
Well, I thought he was the nuisance of the like. Initially, I thought like, oh, is he like not necessarily a bad guy, but are we not supposed to root for him? And then when he like tags along for this whole thing, I'm like, oh, he's going. I didn't know who to like, the spelling bee or the humbug, because the humbug and the spelling bee they get into a word fight,
Literally,
and
and we're
because
like,
we met the spelling bee first, my affinity went towards it. Of like, well, the humbug just kind of came in and started this, so you know. Um,
yeah,
but yeah, I mean, just the alliterations throughout, like the king's advisors overall, just I forget how it was exactly stated, but just the notion of like, well, you need to say it all these different ways so you know what you're going to say, because you can't just say it one way. You need to have the full context, something along those lines. I think so. Um,
yeah.
yeah, loved it. The
You can
word
like,
place.
yeah, absolutely. And I even have to give it the king advisors' names, which is also, again, very witty. The Duke of Definition, Minister of Meaning, Earl of Essence, Count of Connotation, Under Secretary of Understanding. So you can tell, like, just their job titles alone, what they do. Like, but they all work together. And, like, You have to put all of them together in context to make it to comprehend what's happening. So I was like, yeah, I get it. Again, I don't think 4 or 5 year old children would understand this, but the adults definitely would. And here we Officer Shrift. He comes. He's this short policeman, very very small, very unassuming, but they don't like it. They throw Milo and Tock and them in jail, quote unquote, for what was it, 6 million years? They're like, oh, that's a long time. You're like, something's gonna happen. But there in jail, they meet the witch slash Aunt Faintly, and she's the one who basically tells us the story of what the history of Dictionopolis, Digitopolis, how it started, the princesses Rhyme and Reason, how they were involved, how they got banished, and basically just like giving us the history and setting us on the way of what the adventure is. She got the ball rolling, basically. What were your thoughts of the witch and what she added?
Yeah, I thought she was a great character. Number one, because she's not a witch; she's a witch, and
She's
of
a
course,
witch.
you listening, you know what I'm talking about because she's a witch, not a witch. Duh.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
Yes.
witch spelled WHICH, not
Mm-hmm.
like a witch with a broomstick. Uh,
Right.
and so that would, there's always this playful humor underneath it all. And yeah, I mean, listen, I appreciate the backstory simply because I think we could all use rhyme and reason back in our lives. Please come back, rhyme and reason.
I know. We
We
need
miss you
them.
so much. We miss you
We need
so much.
them. So,
Um,
uh,
and yeah, she's kind of an exposition catalyst because she also gets him out of the jail. And when she's like, "Oh no, you can just leave. You don't
right.
have to stay here for 6 million years."
Yeah, you
So
don't have to take that literally.
yeah,
Yeah, so we get the history of the kingdom. It was formed by a man who, basically had two sons. Um, King Azaz the Unabridged was the man. He had two sons who ended up, basically just like one became the king of numbers, one became the king of words. And of course, they were fighting against each other. Which one's more important? Values have, like, numbers have more value than words, words have more value than numbers. And of course, that caused some disconnect and they split off. And the only people who kept them civil with each other were, of course, Rhyme and Reason, which were two women. I'll just point out. But of course, the last thing that these two brothers agreed on was actually banishing these two women who actually got work done. And then once those two went away and got banished, everything kind of just went to poo, basically, and now they're all split. So basically, they send Milo on his way. They're like, go capture, or like, go save and release Rhyme and Reason, bring them back, and then help our land out. And that sets us on our way. And then we go to the next location where we meet this boy in the tree named Alex Bings. And this is where you mentioned before, he's the just the concept of being born in the air and you're growing opposite. You're growing towards the earth, you're towards the ground, instead of
real quick, can we?
starting at the ground, growing up. Yes.
I just want to. We did skip over the banquet a little bit.
Oh yeah, yeah, sure. Okay, yeah. Let's go back.
The only thing that I have about the banquet, I want to find this because it's so amazing. So the king asked for a speech from, of course, Milo. So Milo gives a speech, and he's trying to be all serious and whatever else. The king cuts him off. Then everyone else gives a speech, and they're essentially giving their food orders. And then Milo's confused. He's like, I didn't know that I was going to have to eat my words. And the king says, of course, everyone here does. You should have made a tastier speech.
um,
And just
yes,
that
thank
idea,
you.
like, we all have to eat our words,
Yeah.
you know?
And putting it into literal context, that's what I did love about this book. It's like they took situations and made it literal for us to understand it better. have a tastier speech, have more hungrier words, and then I don't know. For some reason, my mind went back to the scene in Hook.
Hmm.
When all
Yeah,
the
yeah, yeah.
Lost Boys are just like imagining their food, even though there's nothing in front of them, and then older
There's nothing there.
there's nothing there. And
Imagination,
it's like,
Peter.
no, it's like you got to use imagination. So it's like when you're open to being more creative, that's when things happen. And then, but Milo didn't understand that lesson. It's like, oh, you're like, I should have said something more fun. And then it's like,
But also
okay,
too,
so first lesson learned.
here's also the brilliance, right? Eat your own words. Like this idea, part of it is like there's this undercurrent. Be truthful. Don't be heinous. Don't call people, names and things like that, because quite literally, right, in our society, the term "you got to eat your words" comes from like it's gonna like karma's gonna come back to get you, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I love that they took something metaphorical, made it literal, but it still works in the metaphorical sense too, you know? So
Yeah.
I don't know. I had to point that out.
Yes, no, I'm glad you did, because like King Azaz was actually like one of my favorite characters who, he's the king of the of Dictionopolis, basically, the rule over the words. I was like, you and I we'd be friends. And he gives this box to Milo full of all the words that he knows that that the king has collected for his journey to help him along the way. And basically just tells Milo's like, you have all the words, you just need to know when to use them and where to use them. You're like, oh, yeah, literally. And so, yes, now going to Alex Bings, the boy who was born in the air and he grows the opposite towards the ground rather than us humans being born on the ground and growing upwards. And just the idea of knowing, like, again, going against conditionings and what we're taught to believe. And what did you think this message? What did you get out of this message?
Ooh, what did I get out of the message? Kind of, I guess either way you look at it, you're growing into your own, right? And in this sense, like with the boy Alec, like he knows how tall he's gonna be from day one, whereas us as humans, we don't know what
Don't
we're
know.
gonna be, right? And we kind of have to accept that fate, right? Of I might be 6 foot, I might be 5 foot, I don't know. Um, and so it's kind of, I think, for Milo coming to terms that, yeah, there's an uncertainty to life that he he has, whereas Alec has more of a certainty. I don't know, maybe I'm misinterpreting it, but I think that's a
Yeah,
fair enough reading.
yeah. I think what this boy in tree, Alex Bings, like what I take away is like the lesson of perception and how we see things in the world. Because we know this wasn't just the boy; it was him and his family were also. And again, with the wordplay of this book and just how brilliant it is, it's like I'm going to read this so I don't mess it up. My father sees to things. My mother looks after things. My brother sees beyond things. My uncle sees the other side of every question, and my little sister Alice sees under things. So again, with the literal sense, bringing the metaphorical sense to the literal sense, you're like, oh, and then someone who's like over tall, like too tall, like overlooks things because they couldn't find things underneath things. I was like, oh, that's brilliant. So again, with the idea of perceptions, like the way that they started off in the world, like they already know what to look for. They're at a set um, height, sight, um, and I think it's cool. So like they're trained to look at things from a certain way already, compared to, and that teaches Milo how to look at things from different perspectives too. And
Yeah, I
also
think
that goes in. Oh yeah, sorry.
no, go ahead,
Mhm.
finish up.
I was like that bleeds into our second character in this area was the small giant the tallest midget, the fattest and the thinnest man, who also became basically the same person, just perceived in different ways by other people. So that also like bleeds into the same lessons of just perception in general.
Yeah, how you frame it and stuff like that. And I think that's the beautiful part for Milo as he's learning this, especially just the idea of growing up. That's one of the things that Alec kind of posits to him, is that you're never going to see things exactly the same. You're always seeing things differently. And, we kind of forget that as humans, but like that's the beauty. We do get to see things differently, literally, because when we're little, and then we grow and we see. So it's good to have that. Yeah. So again, the brilliance in this book is just taking these deep philosophical notions and making them literal, in a way that like anyone can understand, and but it's not dumbed down. So
right, in a way that's actually comprehensible. So I was like, this is like interesting. And now, so we go on to the next location. They're wandering through the forest, and here they learn the differences between reality and illusions. First, let's talk about reality, the world, which this one kind of like was sad because it is like a hard truth that like, oh yeah, people are like this. Maybe this is the adult version of me, or like there are great crowds of people rushing along with their heads down, and they appeared to know exactly where they're going, but they were missing out on everything in the world, and therefore things literally just disappeared around them, and they didn't even realize it because they were so busy doing what they were doing. Like that's oh like I don't know, I felt that so hard.
yeah, I mean, the Santa Claus, right? The Tim Allen movie has, you don't get it. Seeing isn't believing. Believing is seeing.
Believing is seeing.
So just that aspect, pay attention essentially is the lesson.
Yeah.
And be
then
present.
Be present. That's the lessons. Like be present and realize what you're doing, or else you will literally miss out on everything in the world. And then in contrast to that, we had the world of illusions, which were shown like mirrors, glistening walls, precious stones, where everything was in silver. Ironically, you can see everything, but you can only see it with your eyes open. If it's there, you can see it, but with your eyes, and you can see it just as well with your eyes closed, hence the imagination. And it's often easier to see imaginary things than to see real ones. So that was contrary to reality. And more people were in illusions because that was an easier place to be in. And that kind of like really brought me back to, again, with the deepness, that brought me back to Harry Potter with Dumbledore's like his whole quote is like, don't, with the whole Mirror of Erised, just the lesson. It's like, it's easier to dwell on doing dreams than to forget to live. And I'm like, crap. Yeah, I get it.
Yeah.
But
it also,
here we also, oh, yes. Mm-hmm.
Well, I was just going to say, it also works in a negative sense, right? Because, like, illusions can be both a positive, like, it's not quite imagination, right? Imagination usually has a connotation of good, right? A positive association. Illusions, kind of nefarious, you're lying, this and that. And to me, even a more nefarious form of it is we go through our world and, let's say, you and I agree, just something simple like, hey, you were going to call me at such and such time. And, it's been 10 minutes and you haven't called me yet. You're going to, you're 2 minutes away from calling me, but whatever, you're late just by a little bit. And I'm already like, Marisa hates me, I'm pissed off at her, like whatever it is, right? Like we live in this fantasy world of attributing these things for something like, no, that's not reality. Maybe, God forbid, like, someone's in an accident or whatever. Like there's just, we just attribute and ascribe to things to people just based on our own internal world rather than, again, reality. So
Right.
that's also how I took it.
Yeah, and I find illusions is really like you said, twisting of what's there. Like there are factual parts, but it's being skewed in a different way. Compared to imaginary, that could be completely something naturally made up. That could be positive, but illusions is something that's already existing, changing it and changing the meaning. Or, and here we meet Chroma the Great. He's a conductor, and there's a bunch of musicians there with a bunch of different instruments, but each instrument isn't playing the sound that you think the instrument would play. They're playing colors, they're playing sounds of different things in the world. What were your thoughts of Chroma the Great and just the idea of this orchestra that they're like basically painting the world that they see around them?
Yeah, I mean, what's to say besides I loved it, right? Because color does bring life to our world, right? And we already see such a limited version of it to begin with. Um, but imagine if we only saw things in black and white. So seeing that, it just like color, we can describe it, we can be poetic with it, but at the end of the day, it's this intangible that we just ultimately feel within us, no different than music, right? Like when you hear a good song, there's an expression within yourself. You could be sad, you could be angry, you could be joy, jumping for joy and stuff like that. And so the two combined together um, works. And, we've seen that in various movies. Like I think Disney's Fantasia, right, with Mickey Mouse, the buckets of
Oh yeah,
rainbow and crap like that.
yeah. I was
So
just
yeah,
thinking, yeah. What's the condition when people don't see? It's like synthesia. I believe it's like when they see sound is color. They don't
mm,
see sound. They see it in like literally color waves and color spectrums. I'm pretty sure it's called synthesia, something like that. But that's what I was picturing. Like I think you said Fantasia. That's a brilliant um, explanation of what this world was like. It's like you see colors being painted. Milo's really intrigued by this. He was supposed to wake up the conductor at a certain time in the morning, but he took it upon himself to conduct the orchestra himself because he thought it'd be fun. Bad idea. Bad idea. He fast forwards them all by a week because he got lost. He didn't know what he was doing. And what did you think of this moment? And this was like probably one of the biggest mistakes he did in so far. Fast forwarding time, mostly because he got scared and he was embarrassed and didn't want to admit that he was wrong.
yeah. I think this kind of places Milo there, and again, it's a children's book, so in that sense, it's trying to impart certain lessons, and part of it is like you might be good natured, but hey, you're apt to mess up. And so it's not the fact that you messed up, it's more so just be honest about it and it can be resolved relatively okay, right? So I think maybe it's extracting that lesson, or certainly that's the lesson I get out of it.
Yeah, I totally agree. So moving on to the next location, we come across this wagon and we meet Cacophonius A, which stands for as loud as possible. Discord, the doctor of dissonance, who specializes in noise, all kinds of noise, loudest to softest, from annoying to pleasant, and where we also meet how do you say din? Is it din or dine?
Dan,
I read it
I
as
don't
yeah, I I read it as dine, but as they were talking along, I was like, oh, I think it's actually din. What were your
yeah.
thoughts of just the ideas of sound and the importance of them?
Yeah, I think this section, obviously it pairs nicely with what we're going to talk about with the Valley of Sound, where you know, in a way, we're like going through not quite literally the five senses because you know we're getting words and other stuff. You know, we're going to talk about numbers soon enough. But yeah, just this appreciation for what is our world, right? We just talked about the importance of color and music, and music obviously is a sound, but just even the idea that yeah, if I couldn't hear your voice, right, or if you know. Here's a sort of grim version of it, right? Many people, when they have dogs, right, they love like some people get annoyed when they hear like their dogs pitter patter because they know they're up to something bad. But as soon as a
Mm-hmm.
dog passes away and you don't hear that sound, right, then you're like, there's a hole there, right? And you can attribute that
Yeah.
to anything, you know, like you know, a grandparent that used to get up in the morning and make breakfast at 5 in the morning. It's like, why are they up at 5 in the morning making all this ruckus? And then when it's gone, it hits you, right?
Hits you.
So
Yep.
those are very extracted versions of it, but obviously applicable to what sound ultimately means for us, you know?
Yeah.
So,
And the importance of sound is like therefore like too much sound can be overwhelming. Lack of sound is also very, like you said, disheartening, underwhelming, sad. So it's like we learn the importance of sound, which also sound you can't. It's not really a tangible thing, but this book does a great job of making it literal, literal words, sounds, which kind of brings us into the next location, where we meet the sound keeper. She used to be the guardian of all the sounds, all the words, all the noises, past, present, future, and history. And it got to one point where there was so much sound, people weren't listening to it, and then each day, basically, um, they found out like some words were hardly worth keeping, others were like too much. So she abolished sound altogether, and they're now trapped in this world where sound is now basically illegal. So uh, that being paired with words, that is like you can't have words and not have sound. Also, like they coexist. So again, with the untangible things, it's like pretty interesting. I was like, that's a heavy concept. I was like, oh, let me wrap my head around this real quick. um,
yeah, I mean, it goes to the idea that like rhyme and reason is missing from this, right? And as exemplified in the backstory, there's a balance to it, right? The argument, right, was words are better, numbers are better. It's like, no, you need both. And in
mhm,
this sense, like, you know, when we look at our greater world, are there people that just constantly talk, yap, 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 and it's like, okay, but you're not really saying anything. You're just literally
mhm,
sucking up the air. So please stop, right? But then there's the idea that, like, okay, you know, you can't be, you have to kind of speak up for yourself in many ways, right? And so it's, you have to find that right balance. And, you know, there are people, to my chagrin, I do find these people slightly annoying, but I'm learning to love them that take pauses in between their like
mm.
speech because they don't want to throw in a filler word and they want to be exact with what they say. I think, you know, I would argue that's probably a balance, and I'm trying to maybe get there myself. Although, if there's dead air for more than a few seconds, I try to fill it.
I know we're both podcasters. We've been trained not to just fill the sound. Dead silence is bad. uh, yeah. So basically, that the soundkeeper abolished sound. That the forest there's no sound. They're like, go and get a sound from her somehow. Bring it back. We'll put it into the canon, and we'll break down the walls, and all the sounds will finally be released because she's been holding it within the walls for years. And they meet the soundkeeper, and Milo again with the literal, he had the word but on his mouth because he was going to add to something but realized he should have stopped, and that became a literal word stuck physically in his mouth, and that became on the tip of the tongue. I was like, oh, that's brilliant. I was like, God damn, that's so smart. And he took that word and they put it into the cannon, shot it into the forest, and they released all the sounds of the world. And it was like this cacophonious, I wouldn't say symphony, but just like, when you kind of have like a landslide spill of just like something spilling out. It happened, all the sounds of the world, and then it was quiet again, peace, but it was more peaceful because the sounds has been released. Um,
Yeah, I mean, I
and
think, right. I mean, it's that basic notion. Like when you go to the countryside or camping, you want silence. Well, it's not silence you want because you still want like the crickets and the rustling of leaves. Because if it was
right,
silent, you'd be like, "Oh, what am I in some
is
weirdo
there life?
deprivation chamber?" Yeah.
Right.
So, yeah,
So there's like sounds are good, whether big, small, irritable, or pleasant. So now, then we jump somehow to the islands of conclusions, and that's where most everyone gets there. It's simple to get there, but it's harder to leave. Your thoughts of islands of conclusions?
brilliant. I mean, it's really quite
Brilliant.
simple. Every time you decide something without having a good reason, you jump to conclusions, whether you like it or not.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah, and listen, I'm guilty of it too. But of course, I would much rather ascribe to other people and tell them, "Hey, stop jumping to conclusions," than myself.
Yeah,
But
yeah,
we're all
and
guilty of it.
yeah, we've all done it, and I loved how it really visually showed like random people showing up just out of nowhere. Like, oh yeah, that happens. It's like everyone ended up at conclusions, but like no one really. It's harder to lead. They have to like get on a boat and actually get confused and all that. And here, but once we move along from the islands of conclusions, we get to one of my favorite places, Digitopolis. And whoo, man, this was rough for me. I do not do numbers, so Phil, I'm gonna let you take over. And
Well,
what were your
listen,
thoughts of
I'm gonna. I'm
Digitopolis, the land of numbers, and the dodecahedron character that we encounter?
well. Listen, I'm gonna say. Here's how I love this argument of it. Right. Here's why numbers are important. You like cookies. Cookies,
I love
right? You like
cookies.
cookies.
Yeah, I love cookies.
Okay. You like pizza.
Mm-hmm.
Well, listen. Should I give you a whole pizza, which is one, or should I slice it up? Or, should I give you one cookie? If numbers don't exist, I can't give you any cookie because I can't quantify the cookie. And if I can't quantify the cookie, then you can't have a cookie.
I
And the
can't
word
have it.
cookie doesn't exist. It's meaningless. So you need numbers.
You need numbers.
So,
um,
and
yeah,
I laughed when I mean, that's not the literal argument within the book, but it's similar enough. And so when they presented it that way, I laughed because I thought it was a great counterpoint to you hating numbers.
oh my god, I
And
hate
listen,
numbers.
you don't have to love all the numbers, but we agree numbers are important.
Yeah, so
They're not
you have
more
to like
important.
to find the meanings behind it, especially like once they get there and they see the sign, they're like 5 miles or something thousand numbers of inches. They're like, let's go there because it's faster. We're like, or you're still ending up at the same place. I was like, that's too many numbers for me. Um, and but the idea that so to get to this mine, the numbers mine, where they're literally digging for numbers, and even the idea of like you have a number, if you accidentally drop it and breaks into pieces, those become fractions. They're like, nah, it's all good. We're like, those are still be useful. And so like even I thought that was brilliant because just the idea is like, oh no, numbers in all different values still have a meaning. They're still important. You can still use them. And the and like there was even a paragraph where like they were also finding gems and rubies and amethysts, things of actual value, like monetary value, usually in the real world. They're like they have no importance to us, we just keep them over here. I thought that was pretty funny. What was
Yeah.
your thoughts of the subtraction stew, and the fact that the more you eat, the less hungry or you get?
Yeah, well,
Yeah.
You're eating to take away, so you can
Hunger.
be filled.
Right.
Um, yeah, overall, right, Digitalopolis is a total counterpoint to Dictionopolis, where, in that one we got food, we got the word market, right? So how words were created. Here we got the minds, how numbers are created. Again, we have the food parallel, and all these other aspects, right? And so to me, I loved that aspect of the food, right? Where in that one with the Dictionopolis, you had to eat your words. Here,
Hmm.
it's subtraction. So you're taking stuff away so you can be filled up elsewhere. And poor Humbug, what did he eat? Damn guy ate like 30, if not 40 of these things, and he was hungry as hell.
Like, I'm so confused. Yeah, just like going, what you think is not what is actually happening. And I thought that was actually pretty brilliant when they're like, yeah, when you're hungry, you eat, and then once you're full, the hunger goes away. So it's like there is a, give and take um lesson there, like, right, balance in that way. Um, and so moving on from numbers, so basically, we had that, and they're like, well, we still gotta, rescue the princesses. So now we got the numbers part of the land. They go up into the mountains, and here they meet ever-present word snatcher, the terrible Trivium, and demon of insincerity and gelatinous giants. I mean, we meet a lot of creatures on this. These are all the people that they meet and their meetings and what they did and life lessons. Like, we had, what was it? Terrible Trivium had the three do all these jobs that would take them like hundreds of years to finish, like moving a grain of sand with tweezers and just like literally wasting their time. What were your thoughts of Terrible Trivium and what he did?
Yeah, I mean, I'm surprised they even started those jobs because I would like, hell no, I'm not doing any of that.
Yeah, no.
Like, if you need to move the sand, I'm certainly not, maybe I'll help you. That's debatable to begin with, but I'm certainly not doing it tweezers.
No.
um, but, yeah, I mean, they're, as like simplified as it is to look to term all these things as evil, each of them does represent something, and within our own world is a little bit more nuanced. And God, like I don't think it would take more than 10 seconds for us to name like 100 things that are terrible triviums in our daily lives.
Yeah.
So as far as Milo, and that's kind of the other aspect of it, I guess, where Milo and the rest of these characters are a little bit good natured, and so here in particular they're taken advantage of and have to kind of have their wits about them. And so, how do you toe that line of wanting to be helpful, not being mean, but obviously not being taken advantage of or screwed over? So I think it's a very deep lesson ultimately.
Yeah, no, it is. And I think it's like, because Milo's definitely learning, because had he met Terrible Trivium at the beginning of the book, he would have just been doing that for the rest of the book. But fortunately, he has now already learned the value of time, and he's realizing doing all these trivial tasks is wasting his time. And even just the line that he says is like, what could be more important than doing unimportant things? If you stop to do enough of them, you'll never get to where you're going. And we know Milo now already has a destination in mind. He's going somewhere, and he's realizing Terrible Trivium is taking up his time, and therefore we're moving the plot along, which
Me too.
I
I want to
thought,
move the
well,
plot along for my own life too, girl.
I
Same,
know.
same.
I know. Don't we all? Yeah, so like I had to mention just the ever-present word snatcher who takes the words right out of their mouth. Demon of insincerity. I don't mean what I say. I don't mean what I do, and I don't mean what I am. So insincerity, and then of course the gelatinous giant who is just a bowl of jelly basically without the bowl. If it's one thing I can't swallow, it's ideas. They're so hard to digest. Like, oh, right. Ideas and digesting ideas. That's with the literal. That makes sense. I thought that was
Yeah.
brilliant.
Yeah, and this is where
All
we
right.
see
So,
Milo really coming into his own. Like he's starting
yeah.
to take agency, right? As you said, like he's learning the value of time, but all these things he's picked up along the way, he's gonna, start to put them together, and he's the one that figures out the demon of insincerity is like, wait, you're not scary or big at all. Shoo off, little thing.
Yeah.
you know.
Go away.
So
Yes. So we finally move along to the castle in the air, which is the location where finally the princesses live, and by this time they're actually being chased by a bunch of demons in the in the mountains, which I will just quickly name for the sake of time: triple demons of compromise, horrible hopping hindsight, gorgons of hate and malice, overbearing know-it-all, gross exaggeration, threadbare excuse, and dilemma. um Also brilliant. If they're literal personifications of just ideas, which they're just trying to they're going after Humbug, Milo, and Tock, which is also brilliant. But we finally get to Castle in the Air with the princesses, and we meet them, rhyme and reason, and I honestly they felt like a brush of fresh air. What were your thoughts of the two women?
yeah, they are a breath of fresh air, and that's rightfully so. Like they're meant to bring a sense of peace and calm back to the kingdom, the insanity that we've witnessed. Um, and so it needed to do that, and so it accomplishes that. And I told you a little bit earlier, like our own world could use a little bit of rhyme and reason. So I don't know where the castle in the sky is for us, but please show me a map, get me a Phantom Tollbooth. Let's
Yeah, let's
go.
go. Let's go. No, I totally agree. But I love this is where I feel like Milo's like putting everything together, all the lessons that he learned and with all the people that he encountered, they're finally like putting it into context for him in a way that he can comprehend it. Just like everything that they said, I basically just like wanted to write it down and like quote it or like frame it, and put it on a wall. Like that's
You're
brilliant.
framing the
Put
whole
it
book.
I know, put it on a shirt. But just the again going back to the ideas of making mistakes and learning lessons. That Reason said, "You must never feel badly about making mistakes, as long as you take the trouble to learn from them. For you often learn more by being wrong for the right reasons than you do by being right for the wrong reasons." And it's not just learning things that's important, it's learning what to do with what you learn and learning why you learn things at all that matters. So just learning education in general is important. How you learn it is how you learn it. Some people learn through mistakes, some people learn right away. It's just learning the lesson and actually applying it to your life afterwards. Therefore, that's the wisdom that's involved. And
Yeah.
whenever you learn something new, the whole world becomes that much richer. Ah,
You
that's
know,
so
there's a
deep.
great
That is so deep.
there's a great there's a speech by David Foster Wallace. It's a commencement speech,
Yes.
and
Mhm.
it's called "This Is Water." You can listen on YouTube. And the second part of the quote you just gave, it talks about how college is designed to teach you how to think. But he's like, if you're someone like me, you find it offensive that someone has to teach you how to think. But it's something that we don't talk about, and the idea of like, well, how do we get the ideas that we get? And so the idea of figuring out what matters to learn and what you're going to do with that knowledge and blah blah. I think all is encapsulated in that term of teaching you how to think. And I think we all need to learn how to think. you know,
Yeah.
as opposed
Sometimes we
to
have.
yeah. I mean, there's a lot of shoot. What's the term? there's a lot of independent thinkers out there, and my God, none of them I don't feel are independent whatsoever. So we
Yeah,
all need to learn to think a little bit.
agreed. So basically, they get the two women, and it's like they knew that Milo was coming along. They're like, "Oh, finally, we're rescued!" AKA, we're like, and they're basically, and I love the whole idea is like, yes, time flies, literally. So they're like, "How do we get down? We just had this adventure up the mountain, and now what's the fastest way down?" Like, because time flies, they ride along Tock and they float basically back down to the bottom, and they get back to Dictionopolis. Um, and they are now proclaimed heroes of the realm, and a royal holiday is declared, and a parade is held. So yay, they brought back Rhyme and Reason, King Azaz, and the Mathemagician, who was the kingdom of Digitopolis. They pledged that every year at this same time that they would lead their armies to the mountains of ignorance, which is where they were, and destroy all the demons that I had listed were affecting that area, because they were also in the way of getting to the princesses. So, yeah, they're heroes. Woohoo! Did you think? I don't know for you, but for me, I felt like that was a very, very fast ending. But it makes sense with all the characters that we just encountered. Like, all right, how do we get now back? Let's skip all this, because like if we met all this, like more characters in real time along the way back, God, this book would be this book would take forever. Um, so I don't know. It felt a little anticlimactic for me just in that way. But I'm glad what happened. Like they did finally get back to Dictionopolis. It wasn't as bad of a trek on the return.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. Maybe it could have been expanded a little bit, but certainly took it as like at that point, Milo, gained what he needed to, and the more important part ended up being the idea of these holidays and analogous to our own life. It's like you don't just have democracy; you have to like look at democracy as a verb, meaning it's something you upkeep, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so, um, they're going to do these things, but as Milo's kind of driving away, the two kings start bantering again, and Milo's kind of questioning of like, is this going to happen again? Are they going to lose
Yeah.
rhyme and reason again?
Like,
And
did we
so,
just go through all this for nothing?
yeah, so I think it's a deep thing, but I do appreciate it how there's this fragility, right? It's introducing that, like, hey, the things you care about, you kind of have to put work towards in. And Milo, in this sense, did what he needed to. And then, to your point about this climax, like it kind of speeds it up. But the bigger aspect, as far as Milo goes, is, we find him back in his own world. He's back in school. He's excited to get back to the toll booth, but it's gone. The letter is gone. There's a new one that basically says, hey, we're going to give this to another needy kid, but you gain the lessons, so you know what to do. And then, long story short, he was never bored again, and blah, blah, blah. So that's
Yeah.
the bigger takeaway.
Yeah. Even that, like, I felt for Milo, because, like, I understand it's like once he found something fun and exciting, you kind of want to go back. And, but that was also the lesson. He was like, oh, no, it served its purpose. And then it moved on. Um, and the fact that it wasn't just him, like, other kids also need to learn the same lesson. But he did finally see the world in a different way. He had enthusiasm and excitement, and he had the excitement to do and energy to actually go about learning new things in the world, compared to what he was at the beginning of the book, who literally everything was a bore. Um, and I think that's exciting. It's like, therefore, I feel adults also need to read this book and look at their lives in a different way, to find different meanings and more excitement in the same things that they do every single day. Uh, whew. I mean, This was a fun book. I really enjoyed this one. Anything
It's a
else
good
before
one.
we move on?
No, I think we
I feel
covered
like
most of
we
it.
touched upon it.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
think we just be treading over stuff in a new way. We'd be like the five, in
Yeah.
digital or Dictionopolis, where they're just repeating the same shit.
Cabinet. The cabinet, basically.
Yeah.
So this story has actually been adapted into a notable 1970s live action animated film, which I have never seen. It's been also adapted into musical theater. It's a popular stage adaptation featuring music by Arnold Black. And then apparently, I guess there was a feature adaptation for TriStar Pictures has been developing a new live action film of the same name. And director Matt Shankman is actually attached to it. I was like, oh, I love Matt Shankman. He has a lot of great movies. And it had great reception. One of your favorite authors, Philip Pullman, of course, most notably known for his Dark Materials, also loved this book as well. So it was very well received. It won an award back in 1963. The Kansas William White Master List winner. Whew, say that 5 times fast. And it's been published over 50 million times. So it's like it's this book definitely holds up. Quite honestly, it's been 50 plus years, and wow, that's like God. This was really a fresh book for me. I enjoyed it. So.
Yeah.
Speaking of books, Phil, what other books have you been reading currently for fun?
Well, I do enjoy the holiday season because I'm essentially allowed to just read, and slow down. So
Right.
that's always a little bit of fun. So I revisited Bird by Bird by Anne Lamott. It's kind of a writer's memoir slash tips book. Anyone who's a writer, I would recommend reading it. But also, if you're just kind of curious about a writer's life, it's great. It's akin to like Stephen King has one called On Writing. Both essentially dole out similar information just in different ways. So, both are fun. The Tega Syndrome, that was one that I was reading. I finished that one up. It was okay. I don't know. I didn't love it. It's like a short mystery. It's very poetic, but it was written originally in Spanish, so and translated. So maybe if I read it in Spanish, that would require me to know Spanish, but I might have enjoyed it a little bit more. But for some reason, I don't know. I didn't get as much into it, sadly. Then in my travels to the bookstore, I saw Mrs. Claus and The Nightmare Before New Year's. And you know what? I was like, hey, I'm kind of in that weird time where it's almost Christmas, gonna be New Year's soon. So let me read this. And I like murder mysteries. So I got that. Never heard of it. Didn't know it was part of a series, which apparently it is. And you know what? It's fun. It's cheeky. And, Mrs. Claus is hilarious. And I think the inventive little world that the author creates is fun. And yeah, there's a whole series of them. I guess there's one on Thanksgiving and God knows what else. So I enjoyed it. Continuing on, I read because of Stranger Things season 5, coming, or the series in general coming to a conclusion. I read a novelization of Stranger Things season 1. It was literally meant for kids, but it was, I don't know, it just was good to get back into the spirit of what Stranger Things was. At its beginning, what we all fell in love with. And so it was just a fun way to do it instead of rewatching the show.
Right.
Then currently I'm reading Sorcery of Thorns, which is pretty good. If you saw our discussion on Violet Thistlewaite is not a villain anymore. I won't say it's quite in that vein, but it's fantasy. It's got a little bit of romance and things of that nature. So I think you can get into it. And I'm doing this year. I'm going to do more audiobooks for books that I've read in the past. So I'm on Chamber of Secrets for Harry Potter. So I've done
Nice.
Sorcerer's Stone, now Chamber of Secrets. I know. Okay, J.K. Rowling. Yes, I understand. Don't worry. I had purchased the audiobooks. years ago. Okay, so
You
but
can love the
regardless, I
work,
mean,
but not the person.
yes, and I plan to. I want to revisit Lord of the Rings and his Dark Materials, the aforementioned his Dark Materials. So, yeah, I just figure like I want to revisit books that I love, but I think it's too much to read them. So I figure why not have a new experience through audiobooks.
Absolutely. And it's like, unfortunately, it's a story you already know. So it's not like you're quote unquote missing anything. But again, it's just another medium for you to experience and enjoy the same story in a different way.
Yeah.
So I get it. I mean, I'm more of a reader. I have nothing against audiobooks. I definitely see its purpose. I enjoy them too. I don't listen to them as often as you.
I think
But no,
here's my knock. I just don't like. I don't have anything negative about audiobooks, but I just don't like people that you know speed through it where it's like three times the speed of the audiobook and they're like kind of shortcutting it. And apparently there's apps now that like will summarize a book for you, and people are like, I've read 1,000 books this year. It's like, you mean you listen to
but you
someone
did.
talk about it for 10 minutes? Like this thick book, this
Right.
500-page book, you got summarized in five. That's what we call cliff notes or spark notes. That's what
Yeah.
you got. You didn't read the book.
You didn't
Like
read.
we could debate audiobooks, but like you listening to a 5-minute excerpt is not
It's not
ingesting a
reading.
1,000 books. Yeah.
Yes.
So
No, I agree. Like that's a whole nother conversation too. That's why I'm not knocking audiobooks. But I and yourself, we being readers, we're actually reading. We're actually taking the time to
yeah,
comprehend it and talking about it. Hence our book club, because we actually love reading. Um
absolutely.
so that's it for you. I was like, you had a
Well,
busy holiday.
I
Good,
did.
good for you.
And I figured I want to highlight so fans do write to us, whether publicly or otherwise. And so I was like, where's this information live? So we kind of had an email chain, but I was like, you know what? Maybe I should just highlight what people want us to read. And maybe at some point we'll get to it. I'm sorry that we haven't. So we have The Glass Palace by Amit Ghosh. Um, I don't know much about the book, but it's because we read um, that book that was written by the prisoner, and I'm forgetting his name, and I'm forgetting the damn title of the book. It's about colonization, so of course you know it, right,
Oh God.
Marissa?
Of course, of
But
course. It's on
but
the tip of my
uh,
tongue, Phil.
listen, so someone commended us for reading books of other cultures that were very meaningful to them, and projected like their voice out into the world, not just the authors, but like them as a culture. And so, The Glass Palace, I believe, was kind of framed as another book of someone else's culture of like, hey, this is important and whatever else. So again, we do
Nice.
intend to eventually get to some of these. Twisted Window by Lois Duncan. So we had read,
Stranger with my face.
yes, and
Yeah.
that author was responsible for I Know What You Did Last Summer. So it's kind of in that thriller, murder, horror type of genre. So this is another book of theirs. And then
Fun.
because we did the Avatar book, people are like, "Are you going to read Avatar novels 1 through 4?" Maybe eventually. And then I liked Emily Wilson's Odyssey, but someone told me like, "Hey, you should read Alexander Pope's Homer." So there you go. Those are
Yeah.
fan suggestions, throwing it out to the greater world as well.
I mean, hey, I'm open to it. I'm not sure if your already fixed schedule for the next 6 months, because you already have our choices set, will allow that. But maybe maybe I'll make those some of those choices for us. So yeah, thank you, fans. I'm glad people are listening and following along, because we generally do love reading. We're nerds. So yeah. Just real quickly, because you read things, and of course I read things over holidays. The things that I read from Tales from the Cafe, which is actually number two, the book number two in the series, Before the Coffee Gets Cold. really good, really, again, heartbreaking, but heartwarming at the same time. I also read A Long Walk to Water, very heartbreaking, but also heartwarming at the end, about a young boy growing up in the the civil world of Sudan, with the civil war going on, and basically he set out on a journey to go, to leave Sudan to find, shelter and refuge in a different country, and just like the people he meet along the way. And he fortunately became one of the. It's based on a real story. Became one of the lost boys of Sudan, who was afforded the opportunity to go over to America, and have resources, and was given a better chance of life and education and stuff. And with that opportunity, he was able to raise money, for funding and water back in his home country of Sudan for his family. So, and started a lot of different locations of, bringing resources, necessary resources, back to his country. So that's a that was heartbreaking with what he went through, but also heartwarming with what he did with the opportunity. So really good. Then I also read Caravan to the North. Um, Yet, oh my gosh, it's like heartbreaking books. They're just like, oh my god, it's just like reality, because also based on a family who is leaving, Salvador, and going on the caravan to the north to America to again seek refuge, and just the discrimination that they face once they hit America, how they're treated, and they question whether life was better back in El Salvador or back in America, and like just the dreams of the American life and how different they really are compared to when you make them reality. Um, Again, it's sad. I'm just reading like a bunch of just like really heady books in that way. And then, of course, thanks to my new friend, your old friend Emily Krimpels, like our discussion with Violet Thistlewaite isn't a villain anymore, and she recommended us the River Has Roots. So I'm reading that one now based on her recommendation. I was like, she's cool. I liked her. She likes stories. So do I. So I'm reading this basically because she suggested it. So that's what I'm currently reading.
Amazing.
Woo. Yes.
There you go.
All right.
Well, you get to continue on because you got the next
I do
pick.
get to continue. I have next month because we're switching back and forth. It's just you and me. But so for February, we're going to be reading I'll Be Waiting for You. Oh, yeah. I also read that. So like, I guess you can add that with the books that I just read too. By Kim Bo Young. That'll be our February discussion. 4 different stories. 2 are related, and 2 are related to each other, and the other 2 are related to each other. Again, it's a different format than what we normally read, but also once you finish it, it'll make sense. That's all I'll say. And then we have The Lost Bookshop in March, which is your choice. I'm excited to read this.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I forgot why I picked it at this point, other than, like it has the word bookshop in it, and lost seems kind of interesting, so why is it a lost bookshop?
Yeah.
I don't know. Sometimes the way I pick books is so odd.
No, things are suggested to me because I think that one is generally paired with Matt Haig's The Midnight Library, because we also read that. There's like people who read that book would also like The Lost Bookshop. I was like, hell, even I bought it. So it's definitely, the algorithm is working for us, Phil. And then April, of course, I don't have a choice yet. Maybe it'll be one of the fan books that you decided. And then we have How to Solve Your Own Murder by Kristen Perrin from May. And then
and then I did not realize this would be a July one. I thought, I don't know, for some reason. Anyway, so I guess in July, it might change, who knows, but it's called Days at the Torunca Cafe, I believe is how you say it. It's a thin book.
Okay.
I literally looked up books that are like Spirited Away, the Miyazaki movie, and apparently there was plenty of recommendations. This was one of them. There's others. I can, eventually, not this episode, but in other episodes, read others. So I was like, you know what? Why not? I like the picture. It's thin. It seems fun. And they say, it's like Spirited Away. So let's go.
Yeah, great. Let's go. We love Japanese culture. Our next book is or just culture in general. Our next book is actually South Korean. We're definitely open to different cultures, different languages, different ways of life in this crazy world that we're living. I have June's pick. And again, still don't have a choice. I'll let you know. So y'all gonna have to keep following along with us. So with that, Phil, where can everyone follow you?
Simple. At Phil Svitek. Easy as that.
Yeah. You can follow me at Serafini TV. Follow all of us here. Just wherever we're doing Phil Svitek's podcast, and follow all of his stuff, all of the movies that he's checking out and reading and watching and making together. We're just busy. We're doing our thing. Thanks everyone for tuning in, and we will see you for our next book.